Hello, hello, everybody. Good to have you here. So it is October. See, October already. And Miss Gibbons knows if counting weeks, we are whatever weeks to Christmas. So it's
Well,
Christmas
actually, we are about 3 months to Christmas, but we are already on the second week of October.
see.
You
See?
see,
That's why I like to talk to wise
it's,
people.
it's flying by. It's flying by.
Yeah, exactly. So, and today it is a wonderful topic. We're gonna talk about Allan Kardec. For those who doesn't know who is Allan Kardec was a French educator, and he was responsible to codify the Spiritism teachings and how it happens, why we will. That's what we're going to discuss here during our conversation today. So, good evening, Elsa. How are you, my dear? Thank you for being here with us.
It's a pleasure, Steven. As the ancient times, we started 5 years ago these episodes, Spiritual Light. And for me, it's always an honor to be here with you, Charles, Silvia, Rodrigo, that's not here today, and Vanessa and others. Perhaps one day we'll join everyone. And thank you for our people that are participating on the chat and are watching us now. Keep your thoughts with Kardec now.
Yes, yes. Ms. Gibbons, good evening, my dear.
Hello, good evening. Good evening, Elsa. Nice to have you here. Hello, Charles. Hi, Steven. Hello, everyone that will be listening to us and be with us later on. I hope you enjoy. This is a very special live that we have today, talking about Kardec, who brought the Spiritist doctrine for us, worked very hard to make sure that everything was there, that the spirits were teaching us. And he did this wonderful work for the whole of humanity and for our future. And it's so special that we are taking some time to stop and think about him and the work that he fulfilled and brought to us, the most wonderful thing for our lives. So hope everyone enjoys it.
Good. Bonsoir, Charles.
Bonsoir, Steven. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Very happy to be here, having Elsa again with us, Silvia and you, Steven, and all of you who are assisting us. And it's really indeed a very big honor and pleasure to talk a little bit about Allan Kardec today, which is not so known in the English-speaking spiritualist movement. So we will try to give some hints about him.
Okay. So, first things first. Charles, could you give a little introduction about Kardec?
Mission.
Yes. So he very short biography. He is basically born 220 years ago. He is born 3rd of October 1804 in Lyon, France. He never lived in Lyon. He was living his first years in a city between Lyon and Geneva, more or less, which is called Bourg-en-Bresse. And then he had the opportunity to study in Switzerland with Pestalozzi, which was a very well-known educator of the beginning of the 19th centuries in Europe. That's where then he had the opportunity to acquire a huge cultural awareness because he had friends from different cultures, different religions, different languages. And then in 1822, he went to Paris with his mother and his uncle, because his father disappeared when he was 6 years old. So he did not have the education of the father. So they went to Paris, and then in Paris he started his career as an educator. He wrote a first book, a treatise of arithmetics, as per the method of Pestalozzi, with some improvements. So he started his career spreading the education method of Pestalozzi in Paris. Very few short after, he founded a primary school in Paris. It was in 1825. And then this school was growing. It went also a gymnasium, and which had quite some success. He made a short. He was also during this period member of several scientific societies. For instance, the Institut Historique, Historical Institute in Paris, amongst which members were like Ampere, which is well known by the electrical engineers, Bottin, who was known to make the first telephone book or address book, not telephone, sorry, from Paris at that time, Lacordaire, Lamartine, the famous poet, Lamennais, Michelet, Eugène Sue, and so on. So all these very well-known people in the intellectual milieu in France, he knew them personally because by his participation to these societies. He also visited UK, so he was in London in 1837. So it's something that we found out, and there was an announcement in the newspaper of London. He was basically going there to promote and to seek, to look for students from UK for his institute, which was working in Paris. Then, unfortunately, his life became a little bit more difficult. His mother died 1832, a few months after he was married with Amélie Boudet. And so he was living in Paris only with his uncle and his wife. 1840, probably because of some financial difficulties of his uncle, he had to sell his education institute, Lycée Polymatique, to someone else. And then he continued working in theater, in making probability calculation for insurance companies or for several other activities like this. And in 1845, his wife managed again to start some education activity for girls, which was quite rare at that time. And he was then participating in the organization, also in teachings. But this also only until 1850. And then he tried a lot of other activities. For instance, he made a patent for some siphon to prevent the smell coming out of the waste water system in Paris, going out in the street. That was the beginning of wastewater evacuation systems at that time. But it was not a commercial success. He also worked with some theaters. This also gave him some problems, including financial problems, because he had some associates which were not so honest. Summarizing, he was somehow prepared by the spirituality for another mission, which he started 1854, 1855, when after this first phenomenon in Hydesville, 1848, which is considered in the spiritualist movement in the US and UK as a starting point of the modern spiritualism, the phenomenon of Hydeville in the Fox family house, which was basically haunted, and where there were the first trials of communication with the origin of the haunted house. And that had a huge spreading in the newspaper of the epoch. You had some religious people who were saying it's a devil, but also some very serious scientific people, like, for instance, Robert Hare, which was an engineer, and who came to the conclusion, yes, these phenomena are authentic. So this gave somehow the fashion of the turning, dancing, or speaking tables throughout the world, including in France. So this was in the early 1850s. And Kardec, the first time heard about was in 1854. At the beginning, he was, of course, in doubt, skeptical. Looks a table which is turning, okay, maybe, but a table which is answering intelligently to some questions, this I cannot believe. The table cannot have a brain to think and whatsoever. Nevertheless, he was open-minded, and he started. Some other persons talked to him about this phenomenon in the most serious way. So he accepted to participate to some sessions, and he could then see by himself, observe, make sure there is no trick, make sure also that the phenomenon is authentic. And then that was the starting of his investigation. So one characteristic of Allan Kardec was he was quite very quickly convinced about the authenticity of the phenomenon. Later on, the paranormal or spiritualist phenomenon went through a scientific period, which started basically around 1870. After these few pioneers which were observing the phenomenon in the Fox family house. And you had William Crookes, Katie King, Zappia Palladino, Society for Psychical Research. You had only in France, there was something like 10 Society for Psychical Investigations, including the General Psychology Institute, where some of the participants were Pierre et Marie Curie, Paul Langevin, le Colonel de Rocha, Charles Richet, Camille Flammarion, very known people who investigated phenomena, amongst others, with the medium Zappia Palladino and so on. So that scientific period really started in the 1870s. Today, it's something like 150 years later. Then it was the metapsychical researchers, and then parapsychology with Rhin introducing statistics and double-blind protocols, or even triple-blind protocols and stuff like that. And today, 2024, what is the result? Some people, including scientists, believe in it. Some others do not believe in it. And the bigger portion of the academicians or the scientific people still do not believe in the soul, and even less in its survival after death. So Kardec was convinced himself very quickly. He observed the phenomenon. He saw immediately that there are some intelligence effects which should have an intelligent cause. And that is then why he started to observe with all this rigorous observation method, scientific method called at that time. But when we look afterwards, he was anticipating a lot. The epistemology principles, which were developed only much later, like Karl Popper, Imre Lakatos, Thomas Kuhn, and so on. And when we analyze how Kardec proceeded with what the method he used in his investigation, he anticipated a lot these principles who only have been modelized and systematized decades or even almost a century later. So he really went into a very rigorous observation, but he did not lose his time to demonstrate, to try to find the proof or absolute proof or demonstration of the authenticity of the phenomenon. Because in this type of phenomenon, the absolute proof does not exist. In the human sciences and in no sciences at all, such absolute proof do exist. Absolute proof does only exist in mathematics or in theory, but not in practical. And that's why the Lakatos introduced the falsifiability criterion. A scientific paradigm is only valid until someone proves it's false or incomplete. So it is today part of the science to assume that what we think is true at a given moment can be considered as false or incomplete as per the progress of science. And Thomas Kuhn showed this very clearly in his theory of the scientific revolution, showing, for instance, at the time, end of the 19th century, a lot of people like Laplace or a lot of others thought science is finished, we discovered everything. There are only one or two small details still to clarify. But unfortunately for them, and luckily for the progress of science, these very small details investigated by Albert Einstein, amongst others, made a totally new paradigm, which was Einstein's theory, the relativity, and also the quantum physics, which appeared then and brought a new scientific revolution and a new paradigm at the beginning of the 20th century. Okay, so this is just to show that the main focus of Kardec was to enter in the philosophical and ethical consequences of this phenomenon. Yes, everything indicates that the soul exists. So what? What can we draw from that? What are the consequences? Where does the soul come from? Where do we come from? What are we and where do we go to? What is what happens when we die, amongst others? These type of questions. And so the fact that through mediumship, the souls of deceased person can communicate to the living one, giving proof of identity and so on, has huge consequences on the whole conception of the life, of the human being, of the theory of the evolution, for instance. And that is then the field where Kardec entered very quickly. And he synthesized all this, the teachings from the spirits, in a very logical and rational way in his first book, which is basically the Spirits book. So this book is really a revolutionary book. It's a game changer. It's a disruption. Why? Because it talks about the subjects like the soul, like God, like the origins of the things, like mediumship, like moral laws, universal moral laws, which are assimilated as natural laws, but this in a rational way, and no more in a dogmatic way, which was the case before this book, as per the traditional religion approach, which is a dogmatic approach. Allan Kardec really did change this game and opened the field, or better words, he developed the field of rational investigation about the soul. And this, as per a movement which was initiated a little bit before him by Maine de Biran, for instance, in philosophy, who developed the philosophy of the French spiritualism or the rational spiritualism. And this is a characteristic who is also existing in the modern spiritualism that is mostly more known in the English-speaking or Anglo-Saxonic countries like UK or US or Scandinavia or Holland, Germany, and so on. So Kardec was completely in line with those, with one exception. The Spiritist body of knowledge is teaching about the reincarnation. This means that we have multiple lives here on Earth. And this notion of reincarnation was, particularly at the beginning in US and also in UK, rejected by the modern spiritualists. And even this later on, if there is someone called like Ian Stevenson, which was born in US, he was professor at the University of Virginia in US, and he made really outstanding investigation about cases which could suggest reincarnation. And this helped a lot, doing such that in the spiritualist movement today in the Anglo-Saxonic countries, you have a big portion of people who are convinced that the reincarnation is true and is a natural law. And Kardec entered in this field due to the arguments given by the spirits, and also the philosophical reasoning on top of the facts which are suggesting reincarnation. So he entered in this from the beginning in the spiritualist body of knowledge. So basically, he changed the game. So rational investigation of spiritual or psychical phenomenon, and also with a different approach. His approach was not dogmatic anymore like it was in the church. It is written in the book, so you have to believe in it. Even if you don't understand it, you have to believe in it because it's written in the book. This is the heteronomous approach, which was in force until that period, and even still today. No, Kardec really changed the approach by inaugurating a scientific approach and an autonomous approach. He wrote, Spiritism does not say believe first and you will understand later if you can, but Spiritism is saying understand first and you will believe later if you want so. So you are still, even after understanding, you are free to believe in it or not. And this is typically the autonomous approach of these questions that he inaugurated. So I think it's really a pity that Kardec is not so known in the Anglo-Saxonic world. The books are now translated. I think the translation, Elsa can talk about it, are not 100%. 100% does not exist, but very, very well translated. And voilà. So he wrote, after the Spirits book, the 4 other books we talked about already. The Mediums book, which is about the mediumistic phenomenon. He wrote also the Gospel According to Spiritism. And this book is also largely misunderstood because it is used to assimilate the Spiritist movement as a religion, which it is not, because it has not characteristics of the religion as per the usual meaning we give to this word, which means sacerdotal hierarchy, dogmas, rituals, and this does not exist into the Spiritist body of knowledge, as I have just explained it. So, but what Kardec took out of the gospel is the moral laws, the moral teachings that Jesus gave. And he is stating, and this is something that can be observed by investigation, that these teachings from Jesus, like for instance, love your neighbor as yourself, or do unto your neighbor what you would like him to do unto you. These type of statements, which are very strong in the gospel, you can find the equivalent one, not the same, but very similar in almost all the basic beliefs of almost all the other religions. You know, you can find it in the Quran, you can find it in the Vedas, Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Judaism, everywhere you can find these same teachings. So Kardec insisted that these moral teachings, they have a universal character. They are not reserved or specific to Christianity, by far not, because they are really the point on which most of the persons from the different religions around the world can unite because they agree on it. And I had a huge opportunity in the year 2000 to be in New York in the headquarters of the UN, you know, this big room where you have this green desk where the people are standing behind to make the discourse that you can see a lot of times. It was in that room, and there was a gathering of representative of more than 300 different religions or religious movements around the world. And one of the results of this gathering was to sign a commitment. And this commitment can still be found on internet. Commitment for global peace, Millennium Summit, Millennium World Peace Summit in year 2000. And in this commitment, you have something like 10 to 15 or 20 basic statements on which almost all, with only one or two exceptions, most of this, almost all of these 300 representatives signed it. Educate children, protect the nature, stop violence, stop the wars, stop discrimination, and so on. So this is a proof that these moral principles, they are universal. So, and this is exactly what Kardec was promoting, and not particularly the Christian model. He just considered Jesus as an outstanding example through his teaching of these universal moral beliefs, which are common to the ones of most of the other religions. So that's basically what Kardec did, and the big contribution he brought to the humanity. You may say today, okay, so what? Why are there so few people adhering to the Spiritist beliefs? You know, it's like John Lennon. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I think I mentioned this already several times in the past. Some statistics are showing that people adhering to the Spiritist body of knowledge, there are already 30 to 40 million around the world. You see, so for instance, people adhering to Judaism, there are only 25 or 27 millions. You see, so it's quite an expressive number of people, and yet it is classified as a religion, and it is not a religion. You saw, it's even through a wrong classification, giving a result showing that it's quite significant already today in the world. And once it will be properly understood through its universality, through this reference and always to the natural laws, through the scientific and rational approach, for sure, it will contribute to change to a new scientific revolution, as per the Thomas Kuhn epistemology theory, which will be to change from the materialist paradigm of science to the spiritualist paradigm of science. And there are a lot of initiatives already in this way. For instance, the Manifesto for a Post-Materialist Science, which has been signed by hundreds of people around the world, or all these studies about health and spirituality, which are also getting more and more popular, giving thousands of publications in medical magazines with a review committee and so on. with transversal studies and everything, showing really that the effect, for instance, of prayers and of religious belief on the health and things like that. So it is coming now, and there is also a book which has been published recently, which as I also advise, is Science of Life After Death, which has been written by Alexander Moreira Almeida, which is a university professor in Federal University of Juiz de Fora in Brazil. The book has been written in English. Also, Humberto Coelho, who has studied in Oxford and who is graduated in philosophy, in particularly philosophy of science, and showing really the convergence of evidences towards the existence of the soul and its survival after the death, and also the communicability of the souls of deceased people with the incarnated people through what is called mediumship. Okay, so it may take some time, but really now the pressure is very big, and I'm deeply convinced that when this change of paradigm will occur, promoted both by the Spiritists and modern spiritualists, which basically follow very similar principles, this will then make a quantum step in science, in medicine, in wherever, quality of life, sustainability. It will be really, how to say, the paradigm of the future. And you had some people like Teilhard de Chardin, for instance, who made some statements like the 21st century will be spiritualist or will not be. He was a little bit advanced. We are already a quarter of the 21st century gone, and still the dominant paradigm is materialist. But again, I tell it is changing. You had Einstein also making statements like science, religion without science is lame, and science without religion is, I don't remember what the word he used, but dangerous. When he saw what the scientific people were doing with his discovery about the atomic energy and making a bomb and using it even. So promoting this, the necessity of the ethics, of ethical principle in the science practice. And this is valid for a lot of scientific areas like genetic manipulations or and today I'm very happy to see also the apparition of new concepts like spiritual intelligence that we talked already a little bit about. And I'm very happy for this because all this is going into the same way, confirming, pushing towards the spiritual paradigm, and also confirming the universality of this moral principle around which most of the people of the most different cultures and religions of the world can unite. So Kardec was really made a huge step in very few years because he started in 1855 and died in 1869. So it was only 13 years. But he really made a revolution. He made the first step of a revolution that still today is not properly understood, but getting more and more better understood by the people studying the history of the humanity, basically, and of the beliefs. So that's. Sorry, Stevan, I think it was a little bit more than just an introduction. So now I will shut up and let you talk, compliment, and also make questions.
Good. Thank you, Charlie. Well, that's a very good introduction. So, Ms. Gibbons, whatever Charlie forgot to say, would you mind to compliment?
Sorry, what did you ask me? I didn't quite get it.
If you have something to compliment, anything to add?
Well, I think that the most important point is Charles talked about Kardec and all the work he did, and I think he was, before he started researching about Spiritism, he was already very interested, working in magnetism. He was a member of a society, so he was already studying about all the different effects of magnetism on people. So he, in a way, he was already prepared. The road had already started on the road that would eventually get in the work that he did about Spiritism. And I think one of the things that is important as well is the question that when he first heard about Spiritism, about the phenomenon, rather, what was going on. And to begin with, he didn't quite understand, he didn't accept it. But then he, the people were people who he trusted and were people of good standing. So he went, and of course, he thought, how tables cannot, they don't have a brain, how can they answer a question? But it was, whenever he was in those meetings, the meeting took a different role, was quite serious. And I think one of the wonderful things he did, he wrote all the questions that we still ask now, all the questions in the Spirits book, the questions that Kardec proposed to the spirits. And he got all the answers and compared the answers, and to intuition and the help, he put the book together. And anyone, if you haven't read the Spirits book, you don't need to be a spiritist or anything, but if you have at least intellectual curiosity and you open this book, and it's literally all the questions that we ever ask, what is God? Why am I here? What the reason why I'm here? Why do I suffer? Why do I have to put up with life? Why things happen? Where am I going to go once I leave this earth? Because even though a lot of people say, oh, I don't believe, I think you die and that's it. But we know that we are eternal spirits. We've been created and we have lived many lives. We have been through many experiences, many existences. And then, even though I think it's a lot to do with pride and people feeling that, oh, they know better than everybody else. And, they tend to look down on people. But it doesn't take away the fact that they, as a spirit that was created by God, they have had many existences, and the knowledge is within them. And eventually they will know. And I mean, we know when people, they go to the spiritual world, they sleep and all that kind of thing. So I think there is a lot of, even people say, oh, I don't believe in God and all that. And one thing that is interesting about Kardec, he said, it's not a question of belief, it's a question of acceptance. You either accept it or not. You're not, obliged to accept it. But in a way, it's irrelevant, whether you believe in God or accept God. God exists, and that's it. It's that's one of the things. And the questions that Kardec put to the spirits are the questions we ask. And answers so many of our own difficulties now. And what gives you is an understanding of life, that how precious it is, how we work sometimes quite hard to be able to be born, and what we learn here, and how the spirit progress. And there's so many wonderful things in the Spirit's book. So you out there, if you have never read the Spirit's book, read it, because it's wonderful, at least for literature. There are so many answers for us. And I think the work that Kardec did in something like 10 years is huge. It's a month. It's so great, because he put together the Spirit's book, which gives us an understanding of our soul, of our meaning in the world, the laws of nature, the laws of God, about the universe. I mean, the Spirit's book have questions that only now we begin to understand. Question about the fluids and how everything is made from a primary fluid, is a secondary fluid, and everything that's matter is made from the secondary fluid. I mean, we're beginning science, is just beginning to study and to learn about these things now.
Well, she's gone. Okay, so yeah, Elsa, while she's back, so would you mind to add your 2 cents?
See, when I was listening Charles and Silvia, I was thinking that besides a great woman, there is a great man. Kardec was a great man, but his wife, Amélie Gabrielle Boudet, was a great woman. And after Kardec's death, she became the international leading authority of the world on Spiritism. And most of the time, we don't talk about Amélie Boudet, of course, but she was a great person, a great leader as well after Kardec. And she was a little bit older than him, and she had a very kind soul, a poet, an artist, and she wrote 3 great books. One of the books is my passion, that is Contos, I forgot the name, Contos Primaveris. I don't know how to say in English, but it's a fables of Pringles or something like
Fabulous,
that.
fabulous.
Fabulous, yeah. And I'll see if I come back. And when we think about this,
Apologies, I don't know, the whole thing just went black. Sorry. Beg your pardon. Go on, Elsa.
continue, Silvia.
No, please go on. I'm sorry. I'll say something at the end. So sorry.
No, I was talking about a little bit about Amélie Boudet, how great she was to be besides Kardec and helping him to be the founder of Spiritism in the world, the codifier, to organize things, helping him with letters, doing a lot of things, although they don't have children, but the children were the books, were the Spiritist movement, where they put all the energy and ideas in order really to spread in the world, in other languages. And now we have in 25 languages the Spirit's book translated. So this is the way that Kardec gave to us this legacy of how really to work hard. And this afternoon, Charles was talking about his mission, and people are really crazy when they learn about the mission of Kardec, how Kardec suffered a lot inside the Spiritist movement, and he kept himself strong and go on, although he was sometimes had some illness as we have nowadays, but the spirits were surrounding him, helping him, and his guide, the spirit of truth, was beside him all the time, even saying, the book that you will put the name is the spirit's book, because it's not yours. It's, we are that writing this book. And when you have your book, you have your own name, Hippolyte Leon. But you pick the pseudonym, you'll be Allan Kardec. And the Spirit's book is written by us. That is the exchange idea, the way that he was having support from the spirits. The interaction was amazing that time. He was a truly, truly special man in the world for us.
Wonderful. So, Ms. Gibbons, if you want to compliment, please.
No, it's just apologies. I don't know what happened. It just went down. One of those things about being online. I was just going to say as well about the work that Kardec did, because in the Medium's book, for instance, with the work he did, I think that there wasn't before, and there is not another book explaining about mediumship as the Medium's book has. Mediumship always existed, but Kardec actually went and, through the spirits, they explain exactly what mediumship is. And it's very, very important as well. The work is just phenomenal, and is so important for us to read and to understand, because it gives you meaning to our lives now. Some of the difficulties we go through, the problems, and makes us understand a lot of things, and makes our life a little easier and happier. I think he came with a mission, and he was blessed, and we were so blessed to have him. So and all the work he did, and it was for such a short period of time. But I think one of the interesting things, I think Charles was talking, and he mentioned there is there is a great number of people who are now spiritists, or call themselves spiritists. But I remember when I was a child, you couldn't say you were a spiritist. You could lose your job. In certain places, it wasn't an easy thing to say you were a spiritist. There was quite a lot of prejudice about people saying they were spiritists. So, the ones who start spiritist centers and everything, they were really, pioneers, braving the West, because it wasn't easy. But now we can all say, we are spiritists and everything. And there is still not as many spiritists as there will be one day, because it's not everybody, because you have to take, first of all, I think one of the things basic that Spiritism teaches us is that we have to take responsibility for ourselves. I think Charles was mentioning it as well. Spiritism doesn't forbid you to do anything, but it also explains to you, you can do whatever you like, but you have to be prepared to suffer the consequences of what you do. And in a way, it's a very mature way of thinking. God does not punish anyone. You learn there are hellish places, but they're only there until your mind keep you there. You punish yourself. It's your own sense of guilt for what you've done wrong that will keep you in those painful places in the spiritual world. It's not God, it's our own conscience. So this requires certain maturity of understanding, and sometimes people prefer that other people take responsibility for their for what they do. And you can see that, that we still believe in devils and obsessors and also demons, because it's easier for us, instead of saying, yes, I've done wrong with my own free will, my own choice. Oh no, that demon forced me to do it, because it's very difficult for us still to take responsibility for our actions. And that's what the Spiritism teaches us, that we are responsible. And just one point as well that I always find fascinating, because and Elsa was mentioning it before, how it was in the beginning a lot of people started reading about spirits, but if Kardec sent some of the books to Spain, and there is this very famous thing in Barcelona, the Bishop of Barcelona actually had an act of faith, as they used to call it, which was something from the Inquisition from 600 years, and the burning in the public square of books. They put the Spirit's book on the index, and I think that was the last time ever that something from the Inquisition was imposed, and they burned the books, the Spirit's book, in the public square. And that was the best. And it was terrible, because Kardec used to print the money with his own money, printed the books. But it couldn't have been better, because everybody said, oh my God, this Inquisition thing, they're burning the books in the index. What is it in this book that they want to destroy it? And it was the best advancement that the Spiritism never had, because everybody then was very curious. What was it that this bishop wanted to destroy? And you know how human beings are. But I think, just to conclude, quoting something from Leon Denis, that he said, Spiritism is not a religion of the future, but is the future of religion. That's correct, isn't it, Charles? That eventually we are going to be mature, we are going to be responsible. And I think 1/5 of the Spiritist codification is the Gospel according to Spiritism, who gives us the moral laws that should guide us, and is based on the teachings of Jesus. And basically, you can resume everything that Jesus ever said: love God as your, and love your neighbor as yourself. That all the law is in it, and that's what Spiritism teaches us and gives us the moral compass that we need to follow to follow our north for our redemption, for our own peace of mind. It teaches us about charity and forgiveness and understanding, and this is what leads us, help us to evolve and be mature. And it's really wonderful, and I hope everyone that take the Spirit's book. You can get them online, you can download them PDF and read it. You will love it. I'm sure it's going to help you. And just one thing that Charles was saying as well, he always quotes that quote from John Lennon, and today would have been his birthday had he been alive. So yeah.
Yeah, good.
So,
So,
read the Spirit's book, you will love it. Look at my book, look, it's all falling apart, full of notes. But, but read it as every day, and still the more I learn, the less I know. So there you are.
yeah. So, all the links that Charles mentioned during his talk, it's already on the comment. So feel free to check the links. So thank you, Charles, for providing the links. And I would like to say, especially what Elsa said. Yeah, Amelie was a great support for Kardec. Perhaps without Amelie, Kardec couldn't make it. And also, she tried after he passed away. She tried to keep this alive, and she did her best. But unfortunately, we had some problems, as it should be. We are humans, and everybody elsewhere we have problems. But the Spiritist teachings, there is no problems at all. Here we have the books, the 5 books, and I believe, as Silvia said, as not Sylvain, as Leon Denis said, we are not here to convince and to change anyone's religion. It's the other way around. If you are Catholic, we want you to become a very good Catholic person. If you are Protestant, we want you to become a wonderful Protestant. If you're Buddhist, a wonderful Buddhist. If you are all the religion, we want you to become a very well person. So we are not here to change, to say, oh, don't believe this. No. You need to believe in what you think you have to believe, as long as you use your rational faith.
Actually, Stevan, there are two more books. There is What is Spiritism,
What?
which is
Yes.
which is very interesting for people to read because
Yeah,
it's
especially the
complicated.
dialogue, especially the part
And
of
the
the
Spiritism
dialogue.
in its simplest form as well. And of course, there are all the Spiritist magazines as well. I mean,
Oh,
the work, the work of the man is just
yeah.
gargantuan.
23 in total.
Sorry?
93?
23 in
Oh,
total,
23.
isn't it, Charles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
23 or
Yes.
22?
But
Kardec's
but
works.
anyway, we want to say thank you to Kardec for his devotion, for his hard work. On October the 3rd was his birthday. That's why we are having this discussion today. And also we want to say thank you to Charles because many of these history about Kardec, especially Kardec childhood, mother, mom, some documents lost, and now are not lost anymore. So it's through Charles who incessantly went to Paris, to whatever place, the library, and doing all this research, showing us the pictures, showing us the photo, and everything. So I want you to say thank you, and uh, uh, we are up to date now, and we have more clarity, ba- compared, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, about Kardec.
Exactly.
what we need now is to put into practice.
Yeah, that's it. That's simple. Yeah, that's
Just
simple.
that.
Yeah, that's simple.
People like that.
Yeah, this is very simple to do it. But I want to say, before we finish here, I want to say hello to Casher Souza Moura, Bruno Medanha, Luviem, for being here with us. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much for your likes and sharing this with us. Also, our friend Linda Fly. So thank you, Linda, and everyone who gonna watch us later. Let me going through our topic, the announcements here, and here. So next week we will talk about plurality of existences. It's on 16th of October, 9 p.m. UK and Ireland time. Also on March 2025, more precisely on 29th and 30th of March, we will have the first Spiritist Congress. We will have translation into English, but I haven't received the confirmation if we will have translation into other languages. As soon as I have this confirmation, I will let you know, guys. Please enjoy the Spiritist magazine. That's the
Issue.
new published. So just go to the Spiritist magazine. It's free of charge. You can access the magazine, and keep listening Kardec Radio. And this is it from us. Unless you guys want to add anything else, I want to say thank you for being here and get to know more about Kardec.
Steven, next month, November, we will close the year of Camille Flammarion
Yeah.
with a round table. As soon as we have, no, December, not November. November will be Flavio Zanetti speaking, and the December will be a round table, the end of the year, talking about summary of Camille Flammarion books. That would be
Right.
great.
And I'm eager to know what's next year.
Yes, we
What's
are
one?
working on it.
What's gonna be the one for next year? So
Yes, we do.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your day,
God
folks.
bless you all.
And
God
See you.
bless. Thank you so much.
Okay,
bye bye.
bye. God bless
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.